In this video, we're going to be solving the SQL practice questions from the HackerRank website. So we'll be starting with the intermediate questions. So first, let's solve the binary tree nodes. Okay, so in this, you're given a table which has the nodes and the parent nodes. And you're supposed to categorize it, all the nodes into root, leaf, and inner node. Okay, so to select n, and then we're going to use the case when function. It is more like if-else function in Python. So our first case is when the node is a root. So if you look at here, the root node does not have a parent node. So any node which does not have a parent node can be categorized as a root node. Okay? So here the ones in this column, if you check, the ones which does not have a parent node will be given as null. So when p is null, then you're going to name it as root. Okay, so the second case is if it's an inner node. Inner node means the node which comes in between. It means that it has a parent node and it also has a child node. So if we look at the diagram over here, 2 and 8 are inner nodes because it has the parent node 5 and it also has the child node 1, 3 and 6, 9. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the distinct parent nodes because all the inner nodes are parent nodes. So we're going to take distinct parent nodes, and in, like, if you look over here, the distinct parent nodes will be 2, 8 and 5. Now among them, 5 is already categorized as a root, okay, because that's the first case. The second case is inner nodes. Okay, so if it is a root, it will go into the category of root, and if it is not a root, only then it will come to this case. So we'll be left with 2 and 8, and that will be categorized as the inner node. Okay, so when n in then it will be inner. Okay, now the last case is if it is not the above two, then it should be the leaf case. The leaf means the child node, which is not a parent to any other node. So else it will be a leaf. Now we're going to end as node type. Okay, so this will create a new column called node type, and save all this new information into it, and we'll also print it. Okay, we're going, because it comes under the select one, it will also print it. Now we want all this information from the BST table, and now along with it, the question asks us to order it. So write a query to find the node type of binary tree ordered by the value of node. So we need to order by the value of node. So for that, we're going to do order by. Okay, that's in the code. Okay, so now we're doing our next challenge, which is SQL Project Planning. So we are given a table, and in this table there is a task, the start date of the task, and the end date of the task. And we are given a guarantee that every task has, like, every row has minimum 1 day difference between them. Okay, and there's also mentioned that if the end days are consecutive, that is, if the end date of the first task is 3 and the second task is 4, then they are the same project and they're not a different project. So what Samantha wants to find is the total number of different projects which were completed. Okay, so we need to write a query to find the starting and the ending dates of the projects. So we'll do select start date, end date from what is the column symbol? Projects. Okay, and we'll call this as P. Okay, so now we don't need all the start dates and all the end dates. Okay, because if we see the example which is provided over here, you can see that the end dates 2 and then 3, 3 and then 4. These are consecutive, which means that the project from the row 1 to row 3, it is the same project from row 1 to 2 to 2 to 3 to 3 to 4. So we'll be mentioning it as one project from the 1st of October to the 4th of October. Similarly, if you look at row 4 and 5, we can see that it is the same project because it has consecutive end dates. Okay. So what we're going to do is first we need the end date over here. We don't need all the end dates. We need the end dates which are, okay, let's rewrite it. We need, keep it in a separate bracket. We need the minimum of the end date from the projects table where the end date is not in okay. So for end date, we need an end date which is not a start date. Okay, so here we have another query which brings in all the start date. So we need an end date which is not a start date. So if you look at 2:10 here, it is a start date. If you look at 3:10 here, it is a start date. So we need all the end dates which is not a start date and the minimum of it. So here you have the 4, 10, 15. And at the same time, the end date should be greater than start date. So if you look at the first three columns, you can see that the 4, 10, 20, 15 is an option. Okay, and it should be greater because it is not a start date and it is also greater than the start date. Okay, the 1, 10, 20, 15, it is greater than start date and we need the minimum of it. So we'll get these numbers. Now, even for start dates, we need to categorize it. So we don't need all the start dates because if you're taking all the start dates, then we have 1, 2, 3, 13, 14, 28. We want the start dates which are not there in end date. So if you take 2, it is there in end date. If you take 3, it is there in end date. So we don't need 2 and 3, we just need 1, and we don't need 14 because it is over here. We need 28, 30. Okay. So we're going to take from project SP where start date is not in the end date. Okay, so start date is not an end date. Now we need to order it. Okay, so we need to order it by the number of completion dates. So the number of completion date means the end date minus the start date. Okay, so order by the end date, which is given as T over here, minus the start date, the end date minus the start date, and we need it in ascending order. Then after that, we also need to order it by the start date of the project. So next, we're going to write the report query. So here we are given two tables. The first table contains the ID, the name, and marks of students, and the next table contains the grades. So the grade would be 1 if the mark is between 0 and 9, and the grade would be 2 if the mark is between 10 and 19. The grade would be 3 if it is between 20 and 29, and the rest. Okay. So now our task is to create a query which calls the name, grade, and mark, and there are a few conditions which are given over here. Okay. Okay, so let's write. Okay, so let's start the query. So first we need to select. So there are three columns we need: name, grade, and mark. Okay, so we need the name, grade, and mark, and we need them from. We have two tables over here. Okay, so we have the students table, which we'll name as S, and we have the grades table, which we will name as G. Okay, now the name. So here a condition is given on the name. So you don't want the names of the students who received lower than 8, which means that if the grade is lower than 8, then you want those names to be null. So here we'll write case. So case when grade is lower than 8, then null. Okay, and the grade and the marks are just the same. And so the grade is from the grades table and the mark will be from students table. It's marks, okay, not marks. So from student as G, and now we need to inner join it because for the students table, we need to make a new column called the grades, which have the grades according to the marks. Okay, so we'll write inner join grades G on marks because mark is a common element in both the tables. Okay, so on marks, and the condition is that the marks should be between min and max marks. Okay, so between min mark and max mark. Okay. Okay, so now we need to order them. Okay, so if we look at the condition over here, the report must be ordered by grades. Okay, so order by grade, and you want it in descending order. The next condition is if the grade is lower than 8, then you want it to be by the marks. Okay, marks in ascending order. And if the grade is above 8, then you want it by the marks. Okay, so what you're going to do is first you're going to alphabetically order all the whole list, because if you look at this list, so if you look at this list, here, this is the sample output. All the names which has got lower than 8, okay, we'll have the name as null, so it will be grouped together. Okay, so we are going to group the whole names alphabetically, so the names who have null will be marked together. Okay, so the next case is when the marks are greater than 8, then we need to order them according to their marks in ascending order. Okay, so and so we'll just do case when grade is So here what we did is that now all the names are ordered alphabetically, and since the names of null are similar, they all will be ordered together. All the nulls will come together. Now among them, we are giving another condition, which is if the grades are lower than 8, which means these nulls will come into it. We want them to be ordered by their marks, else 0. Else like ignore it or keep their marks as 0 and order it with using their previous ordering, which is the alphabetical name order.